We were sold a golden generation. Even though I'm not a big fan of that term, I do tend to agree that on paper, we have the most talented US men's national team generation ever. Yet, the hype on this current generation is as low as it can get at the moment. This team got grouped in the 2024 Copa America at home, becoming the first host nation to do so, and then they went on to lose to Panama and Canada in the United States for the Nations League semifinals and third place losers game. The performances have been as bad as any Hollywood movie these days. So what's wrong with the current US men's national team generation? Is there hope for 2026? And for this discussion, we will bring no one less than Tab Ramos. Hello. If you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV. And welcome to episode 2 of this 3-part interview that we have with Tab. For part 1, we discussed youth development in MLS and US soccer. Now part 2, today, we're going to be diving into the current struggles of this US men's national team generation. Now for part 3, I will talk to Tab about the 1994 World Cup that we hosted in the US, compare it to now, talk about how they were able to punch above their weight, and if this generation can possibly do the same. So go get some popcorn, but don't put too much butter. That'll make you fat. Just put a little bit of butter because it tastes good, but not too much. And obviously hit the like button with your clean fingers, because I do not know where you are putting your fingers these days. So make sure it's the clean one, right? I don't judge also. I don't care where you're putting that finger. I don't judge, but make sure you use the clean one when you smash the like button. All right, and this video is brought to you by So Rare, but more on that later. Roll the intro. Okay, now part 2 of our series here with Tab. And now we're moving on from Major League Soccer. Obviously, we might touch upon a few things here and there because they play a big role in the U.S. men's national team. But we're going to talk about the current U.S. men's national team because we've been through a few rough months where first we won the Nations League with Greg Berhalter in 2024, but we got very lucky in the semifinals against Jamaica. We needed an own goal from Jamaica in the 94th minute, something like that, to go to extra time, and then Gio Reyna and Haji Wright bailed out the U.S. and the U.S. won the Nations League. So there were a lot of concerns coming into the summer where we played Colombia, Brazil in 2 friendlies and the Copa America. Nevertheless, you know how the summer went. It was a complete disaster. We were terrible in the friendlies. We got destroyed by Colombia. Played Brazil, that later on we found out Brazil wasn't really the Brazil, right? We saw that in the Copa America. And then we got grouped in Copa America at home in a group with Uruguay, very strong team. But then 2 teams we should be going through, Panama and Bolivia at home, and we didn't. Berhalter got fired. Pochettino got hired. There was hope. And so far, Pochettino's off to a very rough start. The friendlies were underwhelming. Beating Jamaica was fine, but that's about it. That's the highlight. The Nations League, he lost both games. We lost to Panama in the semifinals, in Canada, led by Jesse Marsch in the 3rd place match. And a lot of the issues we saw with Berhalter seem to still be there. So I'm going to start the question just by asking you right away if you can even, I don't know if you can even explain this. What is going on?
Wow. Yeah, that's a tough question because there's a lot of us, wondering what is going on. Certainly the recent showing against Panama and Canada. If you think about it, we had seen with Pochettino and every coach, regardless of how prepared they say they are, you always need time on the ground to get your bearings and to get to know the team and to get to know the players personally, so that you can kind of get the most out of them. And I think for the previous games leading into Panama and Canada, we had seen some flashes of some pretty good play, with some exchanging of positions, with utilizing the field, the width of the field. I haven't been crazy about Musa playing all the way wide on the right side, but that's just my opinion. But we had seen some good things, and I thought that, okay, now we play Panama. That's the semifinal, and now it's all going to come together, right? After 8 or 9 months with the new coach, with Pochettino, I thought, okay, now we're going to see the team's going to be flying high. Now we have a different way to play. Hopefully, this takes us to the next level. And like you said, and like a lot of people have seen, we were in the same place we were before. And we're like we're almost stuck in the mud, and we're trying to get out, and we just when we think we're getting out, we can't. And it was really, in general, it was a poor showing that was followed up by another poor showing in the game against Canada. But to be fair, I don't even know why they have third place games, because even when we played our third place games back in Copa America, when we made it to a third place game, no one wants to play these games.
Hey, it's taller and better looking Tom Cruise interrupting this video for a second. So I gotta pay rent, so rent's not late. We're gonna put now a quick word from the sponsor of this video, SoRare. We'll be back in 60 seconds, or maybe a little bit more than 60. Do you collect sports cards? Do you play fantasy sports? Yes, no, maybe. If you said yes to any of that, I got something for you. And if you said no, you might still want to stick around. Tactical Manager TV is partnering up with SoRare with a special offer. The link will be in the description. In SoRare, you can collect your own virtual cards of your favorite players. And then you may be asking, why would I want to collect virtual cards? Well, you can line them up on 5-a-side games every single week. And if your players perform in real life, you can win actual money, signed jerseys, game tickets, or even more cards to improve your own club. And you can also get unique experiences like a friend of the channel, Fiago, that got to meet Zinedine Zidane. You know what's also cool? They also have the NBA and Major League Baseball. I'm mainly gonna just stick to soccer, but you do you. What I really like about SoRare, before we even partnered with them, is that they're unlike other fantasy games where you have to pay per play. In SoRare, you pay to get the players you want permanently as cards, and then you can play multiple times using those same cards, at least until the player retires, win rewards if your players perform in real life. You can also buy undervalued player cards for cheap, then hold, use them in the future when they improve or develop, and then you can even sell that card when its value goes up for better ones. Or just keep the money yourself. And if you use the link in the description of this video, you will get $50 in credit after buying your first 5 cards through auctions or instant buy at any prices. Play with responsibility. All right, enjoy.
It's just that for us, all of a sudden, it became a high pressure game, right? You lose to Panama and you're like, well, at least we have to win this one.
And facing Jesse.
Right. So it was a little bit different than your average third place game, which normally you don't care about. I'll be clear, just so people know, generally players don't care about third place games. So, okay, so there was something there and we still couldn't get that done. And that's a little scary for me because, the interviews after the game were, when you they interviewed the players basically all had the same message. We gotta fight harder. We gotta play hard. But we've heard this so many times already.
Yeah.
The players saying we got to fight harder. So I don't know. I'm really puzzled by the fact that we can say that after this time. And then it started to make me think, okay, well, if I really analyze the way our players play overseas, Anthony Robinson plays well almost every week. I watch him in the EPL, being fair. And to be fair, Anthony Robinson has played well for us just about every game he's played for the last 4 or 5 years. He may have had 1 or 2 poor ones, but generally he's been our best player. Like he gets a lot done for us on that side. Fair. And then I look at Tyler Adams, and obviously he hasn't played the last couple of years, but the time he plays, he does okay with Bournemouth, right? He doesn't touch the ball much, right? He just sits in front of the front 4, and he sits in there, and every once in a while he goes out and wins the ball and plays it right away, plays simple. And when he comes to us, he does the same. I think he does a pretty good job with that. But that's it. But the problem is, I think that we expect so much more because we're thinking, okay, you play in the EPL and you're doing well for Bournemouth. When you come here, you should be eating up the field. And it's not that. But it's not that he's doing bad. He's just doing the same as he's doing overseas. And then you go player by player, and you're pretty much getting the same as they're doing overseas. And other than Christian Pulisic, who actually makes plays that sometimes win games for Milan, the rest of the players are support players in their teams. And when they come here, they're support players here. But then you need the guys that are actually going to win the games. And we're not getting that. We're getting a bunch of players that are working together, that are willing to support everybody else, that have a good demeanor about playing in the game, but yet no one's taking the team on their shoulders and saying, hey, guys, we're winning this no matter what. Let's go. And we're not seeing that. And I think I think our disappointment mostly from the fans, I feel, has been at the lack of that, at the lack of, forget the way we play. How about we just go and run? We press teams so they can't come out. We just play that typical American game of we're relentless and we're not going to lose regardless who we play against. At least that's the feeling. Of course, you're going to lose games, but we don't get that feeling. We get the feeling always that in order to beat you, we have to outplay you by playing out of the back regardless. Like, and if we don't make it pretty, it's not going to work. And I don't think that's what the fans want. The fans want to win games. Ultimately, that's what they want.
Yeah. So if I understood part of what you said too, you were saying that what happens is these players are mostly support players for their clubs. They play important roles, but they're not the
Yeah.
guys that have to take the initiative. And when you come to the national team, some of them, like for example, McKennie, he doesn't really take the initiative for Juventus. He's a really good, like he's a starter for them, but
Mm-hmm.
he's not the one that makes things happen. He's a very important player.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you come for the national team, you're like, okay, now here you need to make things happen, and that's not what they're accustomed to. You talk about McKennie, even Tim Weah. They're like starters and role players for their great clubs, and then in the national team, they don't understand how they need to shift that. That's more or less what you're saying, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, look at here's a good example, and I know because you watch him a lot. So let's say Johnny Cardozo, for example, right?
Mhm.
I watch him play all the time. He's very tactical. Like he knows his position really well. He does what he's supposed to do. He actually gets forward and gets in the box sometimes from his position and gets important goals. But he mostly sits in front of the front four and he does a great job in a very difficult league and a difficult team that's actually playing for important things, right? So, but if he comes to our national team and he does the same exact, we're all sitting around, not me in particular, but I think a lot of people would sit around with, and by the way, they have their right to feel this way, and they feel like, well, he just doesn't do enough. He's just sitting in front of the back four. But this is what he's doing at Betis. That's what he does. He connects with his teammates and he sits there and he wins the balls at the right time, and every once in a while he'll get in the box, right? Which is at that level is great. But maybe we expect more. So maybe what we have is the expectations. Our expectations may be too high, and we're just not getting to where we want to get to.
Now, a lot of what you said, I agree with that. Sometimes we might have set the expectations too high, but at the same time, myself and many fans would even argue it's like, but we should expect this team to beat Panama without disrespecting Panama, right? We should be able to beat Panama because even these players that you mentioned, even if they play the same way they play for their club, we should be able to beat Panama. And in that sense, I'm going to actually pick your brain on this one because people are tired of hearing my opinion here. So I want to hear yours. Does the U.S. men's national team right now have an identity crisis? Because you go back to Jurgen days, for example. That's more recent, so I'll use Jurgen days. We had a clear identity, whether it was ugly, whatever it was. You knew exactly what you were going to get of how this team plays. And the U.S. men's national team, the past would be more of like, let's defend, a lot of grit, a lot of fight, hit the opponent in transition. We knew exactly, the players knew exactly what they had to do. Well, nowadays, it seems like we're trying to force an identity, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit of like we have to play out of the back, we have to disorganize the opponent the ball, and we have to take the initiative. We have to do that. Is that maybe just the wrong approach? Should we maybe understand that maybe we have to play a bit ugly, and we have to go back to being players that grind and defend and hit the opponent in transition, try to take advantage of little moments in the game? Because it does feel like this generation is good, but maybe not good enough to be the one that takes the initiative. Maybe that's just not how it's meant to be played. So do you think right now there's an identity crisis where these players are like, hey, we're good enough to play with the ball. Hey, but maybe we're not good enough to win games with the ball. And that just becomes very confusing because that's how I'm seeing it right now. Because we do agree that it doesn't feel like it's a lack of talent. You worked with a lot of these players and you know them. They're very good players. They should be beating Panama. We should be looking a lot better against Canada. So, do you think it's an identity crisis, maybe? And Pochettino also hasn't figured that out.
That could be a very good point. That we don't have a clear identity when we always had it
Yeah.
before this group, before this generation of players. I think we did have a clear identity, and the number one thing was always to outwork the opponent. Now, when you're saying do we have to make it ugly? I don't think playing hard is making it ugly. I think playing hard is what you're supposed to do, right? And then you make it look as good as you can make it look. But playing hard, I see it as playing fast, as getting to the opponent's side, as taking advantage of their weakness, as not allowing them to play, right? Making it uncomfortable for the opponent. We talk about disorganizing the opponent all the time, but that's all with the ball. Can we make it uncomfortable so the other teams can't play? That's one thing that was part of our DNA in the past. We made it uncomfortable for everybody. And I think with the players that we have now, if we made it uncomfortable for other teams with the players we have, we can likely win more games. It doesn't have to be ugly. I think that's something that the American fan likes. American fan likes when the team comes out flying, and that's what we did. I mean, and it's not up to me because the players are better. But when I was coaching the youth, the U20s, we had never won a CONCACAF championship. It was crazy for me to think that I'm coaching these guys and we've never been CONCACAF champions. So the goal was, by the way, we're going to the tournament and the goal is not to qualify to the World Cup. That's like ridiculous. Of course we're going to qualify. The goal is to go to CONCACAF and win it. Like that's where we're going. I mean, as part of it, we'll qualify by getting to the semifinals, by the way, which should be easy enough. But we're going there to be champions. And I think, and we did it by outworking the opponents and then knowing that we have the better players. So, and I think back to your point of Panama, when I say maybe our expectations are too high, I don't mean, that beating Panama is okay. As a matter of fact, I don't feel like I'm being disrespectful by saying that we should be beating Panama 2-3-0 right now. I mean,
I agree.
we should. That should be our expectation, and that's not having high expectations. That's realistic expectations for where our players are, and for what we want our program to be and what we've done for the last 30, 40 years. That's what we should be right now. So right now we should just be fighting to get to the final of CONCACAF every time. And then whether you beat Mexico or Canada one time or another time, and I include Canada now because Canada has not been part of the picture for 30 years. They just sort of arrived over the last 4 or 5 years. But they're there and they're a good team. And if you lose to Canada, it's not the end of the world. Panama has some, legit like world players who are very good players, and they can beat you sometimes. But man, yeah, I think
3 in a row, Tab. 3 in a row. They knocked us out of the Gold Cup in 2023, Copa America in 2024, Nations League in 2025. Panama.
Yeah. I mean, we're getting some historical results that are on the negative side, right? So, but Canada hadn't beaten us in the U.S., as I understand, in like 50 years. Like Panama had never beaten us 3 times in a row. I mean, these are we're breaking records on the wrong side of where we want to be. Not only are we not performing,
We became the first host nation to get grouped in the Copa America too. Another record that we broke. And it's interesting when they talk about this organizing the opponent with the ball. The opponent's defense is the most disorganized when they're in possession. That's when their defense is completely disorganized. The defensive line is high up the field. The midfielders are moving, trying to find space. So if you want to actually strike an opponent where their defense is disorganized, and you maybe don't have the quality to break a low block or just figure it out in possession, quick transitions. It's the best way because they're still adjusting their defensive structure. But it doesn't seem like over the past many years that any of the coaches in charge, that goes from Berhalter, BJ Callahan, Anthony Hudson, and Pochettino most recently, they don't seem to have that figured out. We don't have quick transitions. There's a loss in identity in this team. And it's pretty crystal clear that if things don't change, we're up for a rough ride in 2026, which is something we're going to talk about in the next episode because we're going to talk about 2026 in 1994, a World Cup that you lived in. And I mean, we're going to get your take on that. But everyone, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like before you go and let us know your thoughts on everything me and Tab talked about in this specific episode. We'll see you guys on part 3.